You're standing in line at the coffee shop, phone in hand, watching the numbers tick up as the barista rings up your order. $4.50 for a latte. You know you can afford it, you've budgeted for it, you genuinely want it. But as you tap your card against the reader, there it is, that familiar twist in your stomach, that quiet voice whispering that maybe you shouldn't have done that. Maybe you're being irresponsible. Maybe you don't deserve this small pleasure. You walk away with your coffee, but instead of enjoying it, you're mentally tallying up how many lattes you've bought this month, calculating whether this one transaction has somehow tipped you over the edge into financial ruin. Here's the strange part. You're not broke. You're not even close to broke. The money was there, the purchase was planned, and yet the guilt follows you like a shadow. Why does something as simple as buying a coffee feel like a moral failing? This isn't just you being neurotic, by the way. This is your brain doing exactly what it was designed to do, except it's doing it in a world that looks nothing like the one it evolved for. Let me explain. Your brain, for all its incredible sophistication, is still running on software that was written tens of thousands of years ago. Back then, resources were genuinely scarce. If you found food, you didn't know when you'd find it again. If you had shelter, you protected it fiercely. Your ancestors who were cautious with resources, who felt that pang of anxiety when they used something valuable, those were the ones who survived long enough to pass on their genes. The ones who spent freely without a second thought, they didn't make it through the winter. So when you spend money today, even on something completely reasonable, you're activating this ancient alarm system. Your brain registers the loss of a resource and sends up warning flares. It doesn't matter that you have a steady income or that you'll get paid again in 2 weeks. That deep, primitive part of your mind only understands one thing. Something you had is now gone, and that's dangerous. But here's where it gets really interesting. The guilt you feel isn't just about scarcity, it's also about identity. Think about the messages you absorbed growing up. Maybe your parents stressed the importance of saving every penny. Maybe you watched them worry about money, saw them deny themselves small pleasures, heard them talk about waste and excess and the importance of being responsible. Or maybe you grew up in a culture that equates frugality with virtue, that treats spending as inherently suspect, as though enjoying your own money is somehow shallow or selfish. These messages get wired into your brain, becoming part of how you understand yourself. Spending money, then, isn't just a transaction, it's a test of your character. Every purchase becomes a referendum on whether you're responsible enough, disciplined enough, good enough. That latte isn't just a drink anymore. It's evidence in the case your brain is building against you. Researchers have found that people experience what they call pain of pain, a literal activation of the same brain regions that process physical pain when we spend money. It's why handing over cash feels worse than swiping a card, and why swiping a card feels worse than clicking buy now on your phone. The more abstract the payment, the less it hurts. But the guilt doesn't need the pain to show up. The guilt has its own agenda. There's also something called loss aversion at play here. Your brain weighs losses about twice as heavily as gains. Losing $20 feels much worse than finding $20 feels good. So when you spend money, your brain is screaming about the loss, even if what you're gaining, that coffee, that book, that concert ticket, is objectively worth it. Your mind is running a cost-benefit analysis, but it's putting its thumb on the scale, making every cost feel heavier than it actually is. And let's talk about comparison for a moment, because this is where modern life throws gasoline on the fire. You're not just comparing yourself to your past self or to some abstract ideal of financial responsibility. You're comparing yourself to everyone you see on social media who seems to have it all figured out. The people posting about their investment portfolios and their minimal spending and their impressive savings rates. The ones who meal prep and cut their own hair and haven't bought new clothes in 3 years. You see them, and suddenly your $4 latte feels like a betrayal of everything you're supposed to be. But here's what you're not seeing. You're not seeing their full picture. You're seeing their highlight reel of financial virtue, not the reality of their choices. And more importantly, you're seeing their values imposed on your life, their priorities, their definition of what matters. When you feel guilty about spending money, ask yourself, whose voice are you actually hearing? Is it yours, or is it an amalgamation of everyone else's expectations? All the shoulds that have accumulated over years of being told what responsible adults are supposed to do. There's also something else happening too, something a bit more philosophical. Money represents possibility. Every dollar you have is a dollar you could spend on something else, could save for some future need, could invest in some distant dream. When you spend it, you're closing off those other possibilities. You're making a choice, and every choice means saying no to 1,000 other options. Your brain knows this, and it mourns those lost possibilities, even if you weren't actually going to use that money for them anyway. The psychologist Barry Schwartz calls this the paradox of choice. The more options we have, the harder it is to choose, and the more we regret the options we didn't pick. You're not just buying a coffee. You're choosing not to put that money in savings, not to donate it, not to spend it on something more practical or more virtuous or more aligned with your long-term goals. The guilt isn't about the coffee. It's about everything the coffee isn't. But here's the thing you need to understand. This guilt, while it feels important and meaningful, is often lying to you. It's treating every purchase like it carries the same moral weight, like buying a coffee is somehow in the same category as making a genuinely irresponsible financial decision. It's not. Your brain is using a very blunt instrument when what you need is precision. Not every expense deserves guilt. Not every pleasure is a failure of character. The healthiest relationship with money isn't one where you never spend it. It's one where you spend it intentionally on things that genuinely matter to you, without apologizing to yourself for having needs and wants and desires. It's recognizing that you are, in fact, allowed to enjoy the fruits of your labor, that taking care of yourself, including buying yourself small comforts and joys, is not only acceptable but necessary. Think of it this way. If a friend came to you and said they felt crushing guilt every time they bought themselves something nice, even though they could afford it, even though it brought them joy, what would you tell them? You'd probably tell them they deserve good things, that life is meant to be lived, not just endured, that being financially responsible doesn't mean living like a monk. You'd offer them compassion and perspective. Maybe it's time to offer yourself the same. The guilt you feel when you spend money is real, and it's rooted in real psychological mechanisms, but it's also operating on outdated assumptions, running scripts that were written for a different time and a different world. You're not your ancestors fighting for survival. You're a person living in the present, trying to build a life that feels meaningful and good. And sometimes that life includes a $4 latte, and that's okay. So the next time you feel that twist of guilt, pause. Ask yourself if this expense actually threatens your financial well-being, or if your brain is just doing what brains do, sounding false alarms and catastrophizing. Ask yourself whose standards you're measuring yourself against. And then, if the purchase aligns with your values and your budget, give yourself permission to let the guilt go. Drink the coffee. Enjoy it. You've earned it in more ways than one. If this resonated with you, drop a comment below about the last thing you bought that made you feel guilty, even though you knew it was fine. I'd love to hear your stories. And if you want to keep exploring the weird and wonderful ways your brain tries to sabotage you, subscribe for more. Thanks for watching.